Okay, so Mphasis, you've fairly recently acquired Datalytyx. So I guess it'd be nice to know a bit about the thinking behind that in terms of how complementary it is to Mphasis and how it helps you with your, I guess, your corporate strategy, maybe particular reference to Europe.
Sure. If you understand us as a company, our focus has always been disrupting traditional operating models with the use of technology. So we're a tech-led market disruptor, very focused on a few industries where we go and we are hyper-specialized. And we drive this transformation through a combination of technology capabilities and methods. Just to kind of name a few around next-gen data, which is where Datalytyx fits in, experience, DevOps, cybersecurity, infrastructure, and modernization. So within that context, the role of data has become ever increasing, and this really fitted in well in enhancing that data services capability that we take to the market globally today. While the acquisition is they're a UK-centric or a UK-originated company. They operate in Europe and they operate in Americas. So it kind of fitted in very well when it came to services like DataOps, data engineering, data analytics, which we can talk about, in detail as we kind of move forward.
Sure. And in terms of the actual sort of technologies and solutions that Datalytyx bring, can you give us a bit of a sort of idea of what they're adding to your existing portfolio?
Yeah, so I think one of the most interesting, they built an excellent reputation around data ops, specifically on technologies like Talent and Snowflake, and that capability is now fully available on the cloud, so it's a cloud-only capability. Data was always there, or the need for data services and ref data management was always there in the marketplace. It's the adoption of that data capability onto a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud environment is where it specifically goes in very deep. And aligns with the likes of Microsoft, Databricks, on the Azure side with AWS. So those two specifically, the capabilities, which is deep expertise in Snowflake, deep expertise in Talent, and an ability to provide not only data engineering, but data ops. And analytics, which is really on the insights. So if you look at from a maturity curve perspective, this is really focused on what are the outcomes that you want to drive from your data. One additional capabilities that we really wanted to enhance through the acquisition of Datalytyx was their very strong partnership with Snowflake and Talent. They have co-developed data ops on Snowflake, which is a truly market-leading capability, and that kind of differentiates them and us now in our ability to provide that level of data maturity in data services. So look to see more assets come out from Mphasis in that space on the back of this acquisition.
In terms, you've referenced the data engineering, I think, and DataOps, and then there's master data management. So these are, I guess, a sort of combination of technologies, approaches that are helping people towards their digital transformation journeys. Can you just sort of give us some indication as to why they individually and collectively maybe matter so much at this moment in time to people?
Yeah, I think if you look at, see, the data landscape is ever evolving. The ref data management, whether you look at from a financial services standpoint or other industries, the need for master data management always existed. There was different degree of maturity with which clients were operating their ref data programs from one end, which was barely what's regulatory and what's needed, to what can we typically do with a client data or master data management as we look to make certain decisions. So it starts with data engineering, which is where is my data? What's the unity of the data? How do I really build a data lake program or data lakes program? And then moves towards DataOps, which is data in motion, where you start to marry that with external data feeds. You start to add trust to that data. You start to create what I would call the golden copy of that data. And then finally, moving towards insights, which is what outcomes, what decisions do we need to make using that data? So what is that we want that data to do for us is finally the end state of that data maturity continuum.
Okay, and with the sort of growth in interest and the development of AI and machine learning, and as you say, we've always had the data. I guess there are more possibilities, and you mentioned that sort of last piece, the actionable insights. There's no point in just having a vast repository of data just because you want to have some data. It's got to be useful. So it's that turning data into actionable insights is now more and more possible with this AI and machine learning coming on stream. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the characteristics of a next-gen cognitive platform is a combination of three things. It's data, one, the second being the analytics, and the third being AI and ML, which is really extraction of data, bringing the data together, cleansing of data through the use of deep learning and machine learning technologies. Because the quantum of data that we consume today is just 100-fold more than even 10 years ago, and therefore, how do you really bring contextualization and relevant data for the purposes of decision making, which is the analytics, and AI and ML tools have become particularly very effective in sieving through seams of data. Good example being complex legal contracts and terminologies which need to be contextualized. So party in a contract refers to an entity doing business with another entity, but in the English language, a party could really mean going for a social event. So the use of NLP technology in combination with machine learning is essentially driving the ability to consume large data and contextualize it to the use case. So that kind of gives you, it kind of creates a very fascinating combination and collaboration between data itself, the use of technologies, which is the AI ML technologies, and the insights that you want to drive out of it.
Okay, and it might seem a bit greedy of me to ask, but bear in mind the acquisition is fairly recent. But in terms of other things that the company Mphasis are looking to add, again, I don't know, are you still on the acquisition trail, and or what other things can you develop organically within the organization? Are you able to share any sort of plans around those things?
At a high level, we're always looking to add capabilities and further our agenda in our focus markets, in our focus capability area. Having said that, any such growth that we would look for, whether acquisitive or partnerships, are going to focus on the 8 areas which really drive the technology business for Mphasis, and which is where we are really differentiated in the market, which is, again, just wanted to call that out in the area of modernization. How do we really simplify the legacy core and essentially to a point where we make it redundant, and there's a lot of good assets in that space that enhance our capabilities. The second is, I spoke about data and data and the adoption to the cloud. Last year, we made an acquisition of Stelligent, which is an AWS capability again on the cloud, and focus on AWS, and we've expanded that to the other cloud environments. The third one is the whole area of next operations, which is transforming the middle and back office and automation technology, and data goes and fits in very nicely over there. So that's third. Fourth being experience, taking in customer-centric product journeys and all the things that we need to do around design and experience as we better understand our clients' and consumer behaviors and buying patterns. And then anything as a platform. As you know, that we're becoming a platform economy. Every business is becoming a platform business. At least that's the direction where a number of our clients are going. Not so much to become an Amazon or become a Google in such a way, but can we truly become technology-led as opposed to people-led businesses? And that's where anything as a platform. Finally, DevOps, which is the more agile ways of doing it. How do we really move away to a more efficient structure of getting code out quickly, and those practices, cybersecurity, because it's kind of bringing an additional level of complexity, and then that's so much relevant even in the data space, as data governance is becoming such a key topic. And how do we really do collaboration at the same time, provide the necessary security around the data. So that's really, and then the last one is the infrastructure that's hosting the technology environments, as our clients are moving from an on-prem type setup to a hybrid cloud or a hybrid environment between on-prem and the cloud infrastructure providers.
Okay, and I know Mphasis, you've got quite a strong sort of focus on the finance sector, for example. Would you be able just to share we can't not talk about the pandemic, I guess, at some stage. Would you be able to share, bearing in mind those points maybe you've just raised, how the finance industry is maybe, if not reinventing itself, at least, has evolved over the last 12 months, bearing in mind some of the points you've covered there?
Sure. The financial services industry in general went through what I'm calling 2 phases already, and then a third phase, which is what the future is going to look like over the next 2 years. Immediately hitting the pandemic, it was about can we get the business back up and running, and a lot of the businesses were not fully tested out for, let's say, 100% remote work. The infrastructure was not able to support. As you know, the regulations provide for bringing people into closed door setups given the role of data and given the role of compliance and the regulations. So there was that phase one, whether can this business essentially be delivered from anywhere, anytime, kind of. So a lot of investments went in that direction, which was infrastructure being available. For the infrastructure to be available, was the infrastructure needed to move onto the cloud. The applications needed to start to move onto the cloud. So cloud adoption, and you would see some of those numbers of the cloud providers, they've really skyrocketed over the last 2 or 3 quarters. The role of cybersecurity has now gained a new meaning, and there is a lot more. There was always seriousness around it, but there's a lot more investments that are going in that direction. So as we move from phase one to phase two was also about how do we start to trim and become more efficient. And the efficiency was essentially coming that as you became more remote and you wanted operations and technologies to be made available anywhere, and you wanted the operations and technologies to be made available to your constituents of ecosystems. You know, for financial services clients, it's always about the brokers and the custodians and the institutions with which they work, and then the end customer. That network effect needed to be upgraded and modernized, which now has started to focus on, all right, how are we going to provide the new platforms that are going to enable the transactions take place more efficiently and effectively. I think a good way to think about this is payments. What's happening with the new generation of payment providers like the PayPals versus the old infrastructure providers like Visa or some of the others, right? They're having to go through intense amount of change to keep keep that environment up and process millions of customized transactions, right? So there is that's the phase two of maturity that we're all going through. And what's also happening in parallel, which is really what the next 2 years are going to look like, is, all right, what's happened is the clients' buying patterns have changed for across a number of product categories, and lockdown helped us forced in a way that, look, I really don't have to go meet a banker for a mortgage anymore. You could typically do the complete life cycle of acquiring a loan remotely with just as much efficiency, or probably even more, as opposed to going into the branch and so on and so forth, right? What's that leading to is, therefore, how are consumers going to, what are consumer-centric product journeys going to look like? Which is where the focus has now become, can we understand the customer journeys? And can we now start to do a development or products or create our platforms following that new customer journey that's being adopted? There's a lot to learn from, obviously, from the born in the internet providers, and therefore adoption to similar approaches in combination with both the human aspect of it, but as well as smart technology. That's where the investment's going to be. But that investment's not going to be so easy, because somewhere you've got to find ways to cut out waste. And so in parallel, we are seeing, how do you shrink the core, which is our service transformation approach of modernization. At the same time, how do you invest into the new digital build, which is the front to back transformation, methodology that we take to the marketplace.
Brilliant. And maybe just before we finish, in terms of the data ops piece, have you got any sort of, is it possible to give any pieces of general, a couple of pieces of general advice as to what people should be looking at? You obviously give us a really great insight into the finance industry's journey, but whatever sector you might be in, what you should be looking to do with data ops, what it can offer you, and how it can maybe help you stay ahead of what's obviously quite a volatile, shall we say, business environment at the moment.
No, absolutely. And I think we've got to look at this in a combination of both the industry context and the horizontal capability. I see data going across industries. There is contextualization you need to bring in, whether it is financial services, whether it's insurance, whether it's travel, logistics, high technology, healthcare, some of the industries that we work in, and what we go tell our clients, and what we really recommend the leadership is implement a culture of data-led decision making. Which is how do we support your decisions with data? So that really is the top-down message. Then it really comes down to implement and trust the new practices of agile development. Right? There is a faster, better, iterative, low-cost way of getting to the end goal. Adopt that, as opposed to the traditional methods of what we call the traditional software development life cycle of requirements and specs and BA and then dev and then test and then put in a production environment and then do the bug fixing and then go back. Today, some of the technology companies can release code a few times a day. You go back to some of the more traditional operators in the industry, it could be still a 6 to 9 month cycle to get a release out. So I think the new agile practices can significantly accelerate, and the new agile practices are also more inclusive, which is it's not only a technology decision, it's a joint decision and collaboration between business, between your external, between business, technology, operations, risk. So it's a more co-collaborative effort, which is where the design thinking approaches really come into play. So adoption of new ways of arriving at what should be the right answer, I think is it's also a faster way of coming to the right answer. I just feel that what we're able to achieve with design-led motions versus solution-led motions is far significantly different. Except that that the data journey is going to be an ongoing journey. A number of times we've got into situations where can we get to it tomorrow? I see the legacy estate is such that we need to get to first understand where the data is, and to then define logical data lakes, to then say, all right, what is the trust that we're going to assign, the hierarchy that we are going to assign, how are we going to consume data from external sources, and then finally, how would data become a competitive advantage or a differentiator, and which is where the insight piece is. So it's an ongoing journey on data. It's a journey that you can quickly take. And it's a journey which is not really, it's going to give you cost benefits anyways, but I think it's a journey you take because of growth. It's a journey you take because you want to become more relevant to your constituents as your businesses are pivoting and your models are shaping up. So those are, I don't know if I said many things, but they kind of come down into three. The top-down mandate around back your decisions with data, invest in methods and methodologies like agile and design thinking. And third is the ongoing journey of adopting and embracing data and data maturity.
And just on that point, in terms of that journey, is it possible to start with whether it's a one particular sort of data lake or piece of data database or one application, or is it better to start at the top and try and do it all at once? How would you recommend, I guess, someone approach?
It's really a combination of two. The vision of where we're going needs to be a very top-down organization-wide. I think that helps to set the standards, specifically in large organizations. One of the things we've seen across different lines of businesses and geographies and so on, different standards get set. What that leads to is, again, the problem of syncing databases and syncing data and commonly understanding the data. And I think somewhere there is that alignment that's needed on the top. Once that vision, that approach, that mandate, and it's usually I've seen in organizations where you're seeing the role of a chief data officer being a part of the executive team reporting into the CEO. You've seen that there is a much better clarity across the organization on that. Having said that, there needs to be a product-led or a functional-led approach as well, which is you can't really get all your customer data in place at the same time. You need to pick either your most painful books of businesses or your strategic or your I wouldn't say profitable, but your best books of businesses, because there's something that is working there that your people understand, and therefore either your product penetration is good and the customer engagement is good, that you could essentially create what I would call an ideal model that can quickly be replicated. So take a product-centric view to getting started. Let's go look to solve a problem. I kind of keep coming back. Maybe I'll give an insurance example here. As you look at insurers, and each insurers have anywhere between 10 to hundreds of different products that they offer. Pick a segment, pick a product, look at what the performance of that product has been, and then start to engage in that in the data exercise for that product. Build that view, look at the learnings, and then start to extrapolate that as you go and tie it to your overall data vision. See, look, each client of ours is essentially going to the same end vision, which is, how do I improve product density? How do I get a better understanding of our customers? How do I get a better understanding of the constituents that operate within an ecosystem? How do we understand the efficiencies at which we're playing? How do we stop to do bad practices and adopt good practices? So when you look at from the end vision of what we want to get from data, it in general looks the same. It's the starting point of how mature, what's the starting point where we are? We've gone to places where there is within functions in an LOB, there is misalignment in how data is understood, from onboarding a client to selling products and services to that client, to understanding the worth of that household, to what should be the next best action. And these are different divisions, you know, when you look at it from onboarding to marketing to servicing the client, to maybe processing payments, and then, you know, processing claims or whatever be the end cycle of that.
I suppose you've given us some brilliant insights on the, I guess, well, data ops and other bits and pieces. So really appreciate your time today. Thanks very much indeed.
Sure, thank you.